What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast from the Action Network and Fantasy Labs. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. The Super Bowl matchup is set. We got one final game to go. Kansas City Chiefs, Philadelphia Eagles. So here for some early projections, breakdown along with me is one of the most accurate rankers in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, how's it going?
What's up? Happy Super Bowl week, or I guess week before Super Bowl week.
Pro Bowl week.
But yeah, ready to dive into like the initial props, I would say, and kind of your overall thoughts on your process for this game. But yeah, looking forward to this one.
Yeah, so we have prop markets out, so we just kind of went over our initial projections, so we'll kind of compare those now, and then we'll have our prop shows where we give out our actual live best bets and stuff like that, so stay tuned for those. But quick reminder that all of our fantasy football content is available right now over on fantasylabs.com. You can find all of our rankings, projections, and more at fantasylabs.com. So let's jump right into quarterbacks, and I'll just give out some of the numbers that are out in the market. So for Patrick Mahomes, we have his passing yardage prop at 249.5, and then Jalen Hurts is at about 210.5, and then attempts, Mahomes 36.5, Hurts 26.5. Sean, what are your initial thoughts on just the quarterback market? I know for me personally, I seem to be a little bit lower on Mahomes' yardage numbers. But what about you?
Yeah, same with me. Yardage, attempts. This is going to be a tough matchup against this Eagles defense. Plus, the Eagles do a really good job of, dominating time of possession. They're a very run-heavy team. They allowed the second fewest plays per game. So maybe Mahomes' volume might not be as high in this game. And it seemed like the Chiefs were, I'm going to have to go look at their pass rate over expected, but they seem very content just banging Kareem Hunt up the middle over and over again. A few yards at a time. So that chips away at Mahomes, pass attempts, passing yardage. I mentioned it before we went to the playoffs. Mahomes is always going to be, he's going to have a higher scramble rate. Last week against the Bills, He scrambled 6 times, a season high. And then 4 times against the Texans, which is one of the highest of the season. So every time he scrambles, that's taking away from his attempts, yardage, and things like that. So I'm right there with you. A lot of underlying factors kind of back that up as well.
Yeah, I wonder if the pass ratio itself though kind of goes back to normal, just because I'm just thinking about the matchup. And we talked about on the show last week how Pacheco especially really had trouble running the ball with this new configuration of the offensive line with Caliendo at guard and Tooney at tackle. And you mentioned they're just kind of smashing Kareem Hunt up in there. So I could see a pass heavier game script, just because I don't like Kareem Hunt against Jalen Carter and with that Caliendo at guard. I don't think that's something they want to, like a matchup they want to target. So that will normalize, but the scrambles are definitely something that tends to take away from his attempts in the playoffs.
Yeah, and same thing with his rushing yards prop. I'd be careful with that one because he's scrambling a lot, but he does have a propensity to kneel down for -5, -10 yards. We all remember that Super Bowl prop hit where I think he was at like 40 rushing yards. And he went under his 29.5 rushing prop. So you got to be careful there. So I think this is my idea, but if you're going to back Mahomes, his rushing prop, maybe look at first quarter, first half props to kind of avoid that. I don't know. I have to look into them, but that's one sneaky thing I've thought about his couple days here.
So the normal quarterback per kneel down is going to be about over long term is going to be about -1.1 yards per. Yeah. Mahomes in the playoffs is about -2. So it's not every time he kneels down, but he has some ridiculously, those kneel downs where you just kind of, you're walking back slowly, disappearing into the bush like the Homer Simpson.
Yeah, exactly. That's him.
Unless the Chiefs are up like 3 points and the clock is running down and the spread stays at 1.5, then they'll just take a safety and then you don't have to worry about it.
That's true.
Because the NFL's rigged. All right.
You said it, not me.
I didn't. It seems like everyone says it. Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
Let's see. He's got a 27.5, 210.5. So expecting a little more. I feel like those numbers are a little higher than they were. Definitely higher than they were for the championship game. What do you see for him as far as throwing the ball? He seemed fine against Washington, so it's probably going to come down to the game script, right?
Yeah, I mean the question I had going into the last game was just how the knee would look, and it was a mixed bag because there were certainly some times where he was looking to avoid a sack, so he ended up scrambling, but he just slid down as soon as it looked like anybody was near him. But then he looked great on that touchdown run that was called back. Right, it was like a 20-yard rushing touchdown, and that got called back. He looked fine there, so I'm thinking with an extra week of rest, he'll probably be closer to 100% come Super Bowl time. So I'm going to be projecting his rushing upside, his scramble rate, pretty much as expected. But yeah, when it comes to just expected game script, I mean the Eagles, they trailed 25% of the time this year, but with a pick 'em, basically a pick 'em point spread, I have them closer to 42% here. So that's a 17% increase in expected trail rate. So that's a pretty big bump. We could see him, drop back to pass more, whether that turns into attempts or scrambles. That'll be divvied up in the projections. But you mentioned last week, I think I set that prop on Mahomes completions versus Hurts pass attempts, and you kind of like Hurts' potential there. So I think same applies here, like 26 passing attempts. Sounds about right, but he could certainly clear that if the Eagles do get down by a score or two early on, like he'll clear that. So it all depends on kind of what game script you're expecting and what correlates with other props you're doing. But he could throw 30 plus times here.
Yeah, I was at that last Super Bowl when it seemed like him and Mahomes, they were backwards in terms of their passing stat lines by the end of the game. I think Mahomes ended with like a $182 or something, and Hurts threw for 300 plus. So yeah, it's certainly possible. And yeah, I think the rushing probably goes back to normal. His rushing props, what are they? Around 38 to 40 in the market. That sounds about right for him in this spot.
Yeah, and rush attempts is 9.5. I saw people saying they wish they could bet on like how many times they'll run the tush push play. Well, that's kind of how you do it. His rush attempt prop, right? So it's at 9.5 now. That's a little bit higher than I have. I have around 9. But any thoughts on his actual attempts?
Let me look at mine. Yeah, that is a little high. Also because on the off chance that Philly is up big at the end of the game, which not likely, but possible, you could see some Kenny Pickett kneel downs instead of Jalen Hurts, which is what happened in the Washington game. Like Kenny Pickett got the 2 kneel downs, so something like that always factors in a little bit too. So yeah, it still seems a little bit high, but I think the fact that his knee is back to normal, and like you said, they'll probably drop back more than normal. So, and I don't think he's going to hesitate. Like their whole thing has been avoiding risk, right? So if he's dropping back in the most important game and he doesn't see anything that he wants, he's going to scramble. So I could see it getting there, but yeah, it's just median wise seems a little high to start the week, but not like crazy high. I mean, it's just hard to project these running quarterbacks in the playoffs because they're kind of their tendencies change so much. It's like Josh Allen, second half of the year even just scrambled a lot more, and they call more design runs. So it is a little tough, but yeah, I think it should be around 9 for Hurts. All right, let's go to the running backs. Actually, let's talk some running backs here because it is quite interesting. I mean, on one side you got Saquon Barkley, on the other side you got this kind of committee backfield going on here. So first of all, let's see what do we got? What are we thinking for Saquon? After closing at like 130 in the conference championship, his rushing prop looks like 114.5 is the consensus around the market. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, this time last week I was saying it seems like the market can't set it high enough. And yeah, it closed around 125. He finished with 118. I mean, the first play of the game, he took it to the house, right? So that was looking good. But he ended up staying under because he was definitely dealing with some sort of like calf issue. Kenny Gainwell got way more snaps than I was projecting. So the calf was certainly an issue. I doubt it will be in a couple weeks. So I'm right in line with Saquon here. I respect the Chiefs' run defense a little bit more than the Commanders, a lot more. So it makes sense for it to be lower. If anything, like his attempt prop is kind of interesting because, again, he's probably due for some 60 plus yard touchdown regression. So if the Chiefs do a much better job in like limiting those massive touchdowns, it could just result in more plays for the Eagles to run, right? Because if anytime he runs for a 60 plus yard touchdown, that wipes out an entire drive where they could have ran, 6, 7 more plays. So I think his attempt prop might be interesting. I'm also waiting to see what's up with Kenny Gainwell. He's in the concussion protocol, I believe. More likely for him to be cleared by the Super Bowl, but I almost gave out Gainwell under 9.5 rushing yards last game. I got kind of he stayed under because he got knocked out of the game, but I'm thinking if Saquon Barkley's healthy, he's gonna get pretty much every snap he can handle. So it might be tough to have Gainwell see a couple carries. So I'm waiting to see if they offer Gainwell props. But what are the chances you think Gainwell can get like 2+ carries here?
I think the median is probably 1.5. Like sometimes the Eagles usually rotate at least one other back in in the playoffs. They usually rotate more running backs in than you would think, even for having a Saquon Barkley. So I would think he probably gets like the median's probably either going to be 1 or 1.5. It just depends on if it's him. If it's Will Shipley, maybe the median's 1. But Will Shipley looked really good. I mean, maybe they just give some of those handoffs to Will Shipley and let Gainwell take the passing down snap.
I think even more reason to fade Gainwell. But they were offering Gainwell at 2.5 rush attempts last game, and that Rams game, when Barkley checked out, he had a big catch and run. He checked himself out of the game, and he checked out for a handful of plays. Those were really the only plays that Gainwell played that game. So again, I think in the Super Bowl, I think Barkley's going to be able to play every snap he can. So I'll still be looking to do a Gainwell fade somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they post like a longest run or something like that, like on the presumption that he's getting like more than 2 carries, I think that would be an interesting fade too. Like just take the under on that as well. But yeah, and then I mean, as far as the Chiefs defense, I don't know. It's hard to gauge because they were really good in the regular season. And then, but then the matchup they had, like, for example, the last matchup they had against the Bills, it's like the Bills faced the number 1 defense against running backs, who were the Ravens. They faced the number 3, which were the Broncos, and then they faced the Chiefs. And I thought the Bills ran it fine, with James Cook. So it's like, and then the week before, the Texans ran it pretty well with Mixon. So it's like, is this still the same run defense, or is it that they didn't really care about stopping the run as much? Like, what do you think, like, their run defense efficiency, how do you think that plays in?
Yeah, that could be the case. I think they're going to obviously focus on the run game here. But I think this defense is solid. They have a solid run defense. Everybody's healthy. They even got, Jalen Watson back a couple of games ago. So I think they'll just scheme for the matchup. And this is a matchup where I think they're going to be trying to slow down Saquon Barkley, at least limit his explosives. I don't think you can really stop Saquon Barkley, but, they're going to try to slow him down for sure.
All right, now the discussion that we've all been waiting for. We got to flip it over to the Chiefs side. Because, I mean, every week you come asking me for a running back to fade, and I'm just like, bro, it's just Isaiah Pacheco. So let's start with this. I see the market is 11.5 carries for Hunt, 6.5 for Pacheco. Is that too much, too little, or in line?
I think they finally have the split right. I think the Hunt prop might be a bit high. I have them closer to 10.7 carries. Again, I think it goes back to just both these teams are really good at, dominating time and possession, but they play each other here. So I think the Chiefs will probably have less play volume than normal. Just considering the Eagles run the ball a ton, they keep the clock running. So the Chiefs might have fewer, run plays overall. I still, I have Hunt dominating carries. I know you project a little bit differently, but I have them having around 41% of their team total attempts. I have Pacheco way down there with you. But having said all that, I have Hunt around 10.7. I just don't know how effective he'll be, and I don't know if they'll stick with it. So it's tricky. I don't want to fade Mahomes' rushing yards and Kareem Hunt's rush attempts, so I kind of got to pick one. But yeah, where do you have like the Hunt Pacheco split to open the week?
Yeah, I have Hunt. Yeah, 10-8.
Okay.
And then I have Pacheco at 4.5. So I'm
Ooh.
no, I'm 6 carries between them. The market is 5. So again, I'm somehow still like
Yeah.
lower on Pacheco, even
Would
with
you
the
rather fade
market.
his? Would you rather fade his attempts or his like his efficiency, his like rushing yards?
In this matchup, let's see. I think so. It says his yardage is 22 and a half. I I would probably rather fade his attempts in this case because I'm 2 attempts lower. But and like, but I mean, I'd fade all of them. I just like because this is what I kind of talked about. It's like he doesn't look good. He's not running
Yeah.
well. Like he's just not. I think the time off just kind of like he's not in sync with the line the way he was earlier in the year, earlier in his career, and I think they're just going away from him more. So he could bust a long run, but he just hasn't. He still only has I think one 10-yard run, 10+ yard run since coming back. So yeah, I mean I don't know. Like I tend to just find whatever I'm off more, which in this case looks like the attempts.
Yeah.
But I mean I'd be fine. I'd be fine fading all of them. I probably will. What about
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Like again, I think Hunt's rush attempt prop is probably a little too high. Not running to the window to bet it or anything. I always find it fascinating. They're a nightmare to project, obviously, when it comes to rush attempts. What about the receiving props? My God, it's just an even split across the board. I have all three projected for 9 receiving yards, which if you factor in the median, would be around 6.5. I can't find anything I want to do with that. But do you have any read on like the receiving props? Because they're all kind of projected for 1 catch. And last week
Yeah,
they all ran. Kareem Hunt led the backfield with a 37% routes run rate, but he just never gets
yes.
targeted. So, do you see any angle on the receiving props, or are you just in line with the market too?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I guess it's because I'm regressing their target per route rate a little bit. So I have Hunt with 1.5 catches, Pacheco 1.3, and Piron 1.0. But that's just kind of based on like my quick kind of putting those target per route. I mean, putting those route rates exactly where they were last game. I'll probably
Oh,
get them a little closer together when I look deeper into it. But yeah, I think it's they're harder to fade there because number one, I think the Chiefs will pass a little bit more. Number two, I think the whole thing with Pacheco too that's making it tough for him to run is because it's a little more of a tip off when he's in the game, and so the
mm,
Chiefs what they try to do is try to break tendency and have him in the game for more pass plays. So it's hard to fade him. Like I still would rather fade Pacheco on the run game. Like I'm
yeah,
looking,
yeah.
you could actually get Pacheco under longest carry 9.5 in the market. If you're projecting my 4.5 carries, that's still a smash under. Because that depends
Yeah.
on
Oh, yeah.
volume too. But yeah, so yeah, there's a couple ways to fade Pacheco, but yeah, the receiving, I have Hunt 10 yards, P Ryan 9 yards, and Pacheco 8 yards because I have P Ryan for more yards per catch because sometimes we'll
Oh,
get
right.
that Kelsey lateral or some the little like he seems to get sprung more
Yeah, his A
in
dot's
this scheme.
plus
Yeah,
0.6 yards,
yeah,
not negative, which kind of helps him out. Yeah, Pacheco. That's interesting. You said you were projecting him for 1.3 receptions, if I heard
yeah,
correctly.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
his props 4.5 yards. I'm probably not going to actually bet his over and make an official play, but I'd probably show some value on the over 4.5. Not something I want to sweat. But he has been getting targets when he does see the rare route run, and he's only caught 73% of his targets this year. So he's probably due for some positive catch regression. Should be closer to 80-85%. So I think Pacheco. Yeah, I would agree with the fade on the rush attempts, but if there was a market, I would say he's offering some sneaky value. It'd be the over 4.5 receiving yards, but that's kind of a dangerous market to be investing in with the three backs kind of splitting the work there pretty evenly. So Not going to touch it, but I would show.
Well, I mean, it really hasn't been
obviously,
even. It's been
slide
Kareem Hunt. Like, I feel like, why
Well,
are we
just in
burying
terms
the
of-
lead? It's always been Kareem Hunt, man.
in terms of in terms of routes run, but if you were to factor in target rate, I think we have all three pretty much with the same projections. That's what I'm getting at. So Pacheco has a little bit more upside when it comes to his receiving market as opposed to his rushing market, of course.
Yeah, I mean, until we see otherwise, but it seems like the Chiefs are kind of realizing it. They have 2 weeks off, so I'm sure, we'll see some new wrinkles, and he'll definitely get carries, but they seem to go away from him quicker and quicker these days, and we know Hunt's going to get those goal line opportunities. So before we jump into wide receiver, we've been discussing, the stage is set for Super Bowl 59 and the many prop bets to come. That means now is the perfect time to upgrade to an Action Pro subscription, because only Action Pro subscribers get real-time pick alerts from our experts. That includes Stuckey, Brandon Anderson, Sean, and I. Plus, it's got all the tools that you need to turn a profit betting in 2025. Right now, new subscribers can get $40 off a year of Action Pro at actionnetwork.com/SB. That's $40 off for the full year, so you'll be covered for the Super Bowl, March Madness, baseball, NBA, and even next college football and NFL season. So don't wait. Visit actionnetwork.com/SB to get $40 off Action Pro. And if you're looking for early Super Bowl props from Sean Kerner and I, check out the Action Network podcast for 2 sets of live shows this Wednesday and next Wednesday. The first will be 4 p.m. Eastern and the second at 6 p.m. Eastern, the next 2 Wednesdays. So mark your calendars. Wednesday, January 29th, Wednesday, February 3rd, 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. on the Action Network YouTube page and in the Action app. This is an audience favorite and one of our favorite shows to do each year. The lines on these props move quickly, so you absolutely want to be there live. All right, let's jump to wide receiver. And we'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Look at Xavier Worthy's up to 54.5 in the market. Hollywood Brown's around 40. That's where he was last game. Hopkins is interesting, Sean. And Juju, I remember we were talking on the touchdown show, and I was giving out anytime touchdown for Juju. Had the right idea. Didn't come through the touchdown, but I think he racked up 60. And so what do you make of kind of this, the lower tier of the Chief wide receivers, like the Hopkinses, the Jujus, and the Watsons? Anything you're seeing there with Hopkins essentially at like a catch and a half in the market now?
Oh my God, I hope we get a Justin Watson prop, or like a first quarter Justin Watson prop. Like last year, I got it like even money. I think I'm pretty much in line with Worthy and Hollywood Brown. They're probably a little inflated. This is a Super Bowl. I think you're going to see a lot of these props inflated to the over. We're going to see a ton of new action on props, I think. And, it's mostly going to be on overs. So those guys, I'm probably not interested in fading them or backing them. It is interesting when you get, past the top 2 receivers. You would think DeAndre Hopkins would be the number 3 receiver. But like you said, Juju ran a route, twice as many routes as Hopkins last week. So that's happening. Wait.
Before let me stop you. Before you continue, hold that thought. What are you projecting for this game for Juju, like routes run?
Well, I was going to ask you. I got it like low 50s. Like if I'm being precise, like 52%. Sort of splitting the baby when it comes to these first 2 playoff games. Yeah. And I have Hopkins like low to mid 40s. Like I don't know if they can run him just 31% of the routes again here. I think it'll be low 40s, but I have Juju about 10% higher than Hopkins right now. So let's go with 52% for Juju and 43% for Hopkins. Where are you at?
Yeah, 50 for Juju, 37.5 for Hopkins. I go in 2.5 intervals. Unless I really have to get
37.5% for Hopkins. Oh, yep. Okay.
Yeah. All right. And then that is kind of splitting the baby, like you said. And I'll do like a deeper dive again, and unless I see a bigger reason, because the thing about these, things like route rate, carry share, outside of like outlier game scripts and things like that, these stabilize really quickly if you're using them as like a predictive number, just because they're human decided. Like there's a coach telling Hopkins to like go in or stay on the sideline.
Yeah.
It's not like a catch rate or something like that,
Yeah.
where even a target rate is a little mix of both. It's like what the quarterback is doing and what the defense is doing and how good the receiver is. Like, but route rate is just more like, okay, there is some variance in terms of personnel, and maybe you have a bunch of goal line where there's no receivers on the field or something like that. But in general, you have to use these. You have to treat these last few games, put a lot of weight on them. So yeah, it's Hopkins is trending in the wrong direction for heading into the Super Bowl.
They have the same exact receiving yard prop right now, Juju and Hopkins at 14.5. Does that mean you're interested in anyone's over there or under? Like, are you in line with that? But like, it's crazy.
I have Hopkins about three yards ahead of Juju still. I mean, that's just I guess because of their season long efficiencies. So I'll do my deep dive, but interested in a Hopkins or Juju over? No, not at first glance, but just those Eagles D backs are so good. So I'm trying to think about the way the scheme would work. You would have Hopkins on either Slay or Quinyon Mitchell most of the time. So that's not what I want. But then you'd have Juju on all those guys. Plus, I would probably lean Juju just because I feel like kind of similar to this game. Like you're watching Hopkins when he's in the game, right? Like he's a potential future Hall of Famer. Like if I'm thinking how defensive coordinators think, Hopkins, he might not be in there that much, but when he's in there, you better watch his ass. Whereas like Juju, we kind of know what Juju is, so I'd probably lean over on Juju because that's kind of how the defense would be scheming. But what about you?
Yeah, if anything, I'm showing some slight value on Hopkins over. The one thing about Hopkins' season-long rate stats is, he was getting targets from Will Levis at one point. So,
I factored that out. I'm
the listener. If you're making projections for this game, you're playing around, you have to make sure that you're factoring that in. He was getting targets from Will Levis earlier in the season, and now he's getting targets from Patrick Mahomes. So he's probably more likely to catch the targets thrown his way. But yeah, I have Hopkins, way less routes run, but a higher target rate. And his ADOT's about the same as Juju the past couple of games. So, when do you think they would use Hopkins? Like maybe around like the end zone, like.
I don't know. When do you think the Texans are planning to use Deontay Johnson? When do you think the Bills are planning to use Amari Cooper? I don't know. Never.
Right.
Like, I'm just going off like this has been the playoff the season of traded guys, underused traded guys.
Right. Yeah. It's almost like, they added Hopkins to kind of hold things down until Hollywood Brown came back. It's clear their plan was to have Hollywood Brown be a top 2 receiver in this offense. So ever since he came back, Hopkins' role has only gone down. So I think that's playing a huge part. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm not as low as you when it comes to his routes run rate, but still, I definitely have Juju operating at least as the number 3 receiver next week.
Yeah, I think the overall theme of the Chiefs offense and why you're seeing the splits you're seeing is they're trying, they realize that they need to get the ball out of Mahomes' hands quickly on a lot of these plays because, tackle situation. You have Kelsey's your number 1 receiver. He's not, he is what he is. He's a great receiver over the middle, not a speed guy. So what I think they're trying to do is, the way you would surround like somebody with shooters in the NBA, like they're just trying to surround Kelsey with speed, right? So I think that's why we've seen Worthy get more involved as the season's progressed. And then Hollywood Brown immediately jump everybody because he gives you, and that's why I think even why we see Watson get snaps at all. Because most teams don't have to give snaps to their number 5 receiver. Like there's no rule that's like most teams don't actually give snaps to their number 5 receiver. Like ask Zach Pascal, ask who's on the Casey Washington on the, you know what I mean? Like there's many teams that don't give snaps to their number 5 wide receiver. The Chiefs do, and I think it's just to get that speed on the field for a few plays here and there. So I'm with you. I think he could definitely bounce back. But the thing about it was Hopkins' ceiling was this year is what, like about a little like 62% routes run rate, 65. So it's not even like we're talking bounce back. We're just talking minimal ceiling. But I mean, this feels like a throwback to the last Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles, when in that one it was like Juju was trending down and he was like the veteran that we had no idea what to do with, and now it's Hopkins.
Yeah. Speaking of number 5 receivers again, I hope they float a Justin Watson half receiving yard prop. There's no way they could offer it, minus 115 both ways. The under would have to be minus 180-ish, that range, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way. There's no way they could offer.
Because I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do the calculation of I have him at like a little under a half a catch, which so that's like the median is even lower. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking like no vig, minus 140, minus 150 there. If you have it around what 0.4?
Yeah, I mean the 0.3 point high.
Now I have it at 0.3. We're talking. We're approaching minus 200 for the under there.
Yeah. I mean, the books still owe me for that John Bates fiasco. No, I'm just kidding. It's about time to get right on one of these half a yard unders. Oh man. All right, let's jump over to the Eagles side. Let's see what we got going on here. So AJ Brown finally corrected himself a little bit with the big game. He's at 69.70 in the market for receiving yards. And then Devontae, 51.5. Goddard and Devontae are pretty even. Any thoughts on that one? I know Goddard has been a popular play already because the Chiefs struggles against tight ends.
They're even in what, receptions?
In receiving yardage in the market.
Oh, they're I would favor 50. Yeah, I would favor Devontae, and I have the receptions pretty close. Even though Goddard does have a higher yards per catch, I still think Devontae has a higher ceiling than him in terms of receiving yards. So I have Devontae with a few yards ahead of him. Not saying I'm betting on his over or under there, but again, I think Devontae has a higher ceiling there for an explosive play. But just when it comes to the Eagles wide receivers, would you say that this is one of the easier groups to project week to week because it's AJ Brown and Devontae Smith dominating targets, and then we have Jahan Dotson with his 70% routes run rate where he probably won't see a target. He was the cardio king last week. I think he had 26 routes run with 0 targets, so 21 routes run with no targets. So his prop will be fascinating. It's 3.5 yards. It's down to It's down to 2.5 now. I was going to say I might take the under there, but it's a Super Bowl, so we could see something crazy where, like, the first play they target Jahan Dotson, right? Have you seen crazy things like that happen, or like
that? I saw that happen in the. Didn't that hapen in the wild card round? Was it the touchdown for Jahan Dotson? Third play of the game, did, right? Something like that. Yeah, third or fourth play of the game. So the thing is, it really comes back to reads with the Eagles because. While I think a lot of in a normal offense, Jahan Dotson probably would be more likely to catch a ball in a game like this. The Eagles, they're not. It's not like you're going to put Jahan Dotson as a top 3 read pretty much any time. So it's like it really depends on like that one-off where either Jalen Hurts makes it through like 4 or 5 progressions, or like the one-off, like one play out of like 100. That he's the first read. Yeah. Now, because even in the Rams game, he was open on a bunch of stuff and Jalen didn't hit him, and Jalen had that bad game. And so you would think coming into the next game, okay, like that's probably one of the corrections he's gonna make is, okay, let me look for Dotson because he's probably gonna be wide open because the defense is gonna dare me to throw at him, but that didn't happen. Yeah. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard to say with him. I would lean under unless it's unless it turns into another one of those high volume Hurts games like the last Super Bowl. I think that's the best. It's just more reps than anything. I don't think there's going to be anything in the playbook that's going to say let's waste one of our 20 pass attempts
Yeah,
on
exactly.
John Dotson.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They don't seem the type to do that. I think a better question would be, how do you think Spags approaches this game, and how often does he use man versus zone? And does he have McDuffie follow anybody around? Like, do you have any insight like how he might be handling this? Or are like, if they play zone, they line up, Dotson in front of McDuffie, that might make sense. Like, I'm kind of interested if you have any idea yet, like how they plan to attack. Like,
Yeah, I would think you see more Jalen Watson than you. First of all, just more Jalen Watson on the field than you've seen in the past
right.
2 games, because he played a lot of that second half against the Bills, but didn't. First half seemed like him and Najee Johnson were still kind of rotating. So
Yeah.
you will see that. My guess is they'll mix it up. Like, I don't think the Chiefs, like, they play more man than most, and they'll probably still do that because they can, because they have the horses to do it. So yeah, I expect some man, and when they do, I would expect McDuffie to be on AJ. I think they'll mix it up, because you can have now with Jalen Watson back, it gives you more options, especially against a team that's really throwing like a target share that's going to be condensed. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think McDuffie as a shadow. I think you even might see McDuffie follow Smith some plays. I think Spags will mix it up. That's how they won the game against Buffalo, mixing it up. Like, they showed pressure and brought it from the opposite side all night until the last play. They showed pressure and just brought it from the side that they were showing it, and they had slid the protection the opposite way. So it's really tough to like get a handle on exactly what Spags is going to do, other than to say expect them to mix it up and expect at least 1 or 2 wrinkles that they don't expect. So. But yeah, default, I would say I would expect like just some McDuffie, and I would expect a decent amount of man, because they've done that every week, and I don't see a reason not to.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of where I'm thinking, and I'm thinking about the tackle props, of course. So McDuffie's at 4.5, not really involved in run defense. He kind of just leaves that to everybody else.
I mean, this is Saquon. He's gonna run. He could run the parts of your defense that you didn't know existed.
That's true. That's true. Saquon does bring everybody else involved. I might have an angle there for tomorrow, but yeah, like McDuffie at 4.5. If he's not as involved in run defense like he has been this season, that would be tough to clear. And if Hurts throws to Brown or Smith, depending on which guy McDuffie's on, just throwing away from McDuffie, that would help. And anytime McDuffie's lined up across from Jahan Dotson, he's not getting a tackle there. So McDuffie's under 4.5 is interesting, but I'm still trying to figure out like how they're going to approach it. But yeah, that's one angle I was thinking when it comes.
Is the median tackles for like a starting corner like around 4, or is it?
Yeah, like 4.5 is a pretty big number, especially like when it comes to cornerbacks. The rookie cornerbacks where quarterbacks are targeting them heavily, or they're facing stud receiver. You could see their props at 4.5. Stud corners, usually their median's like 3.5. So McDuffie at 4.5 is definitely interesting to open the week.
Yeah, I mean, that could signify just a higher volume pass game in general from the Eagles, which is certainly possible. Yeah, I guess it really comes down to the explosives with Saquon, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, they're only expected to face 16.5 completions. Usually the Chiefs are facing a team that's trailing, trying to come back, and they cough up 20 plus completions, so they're not even expected to face as many completions as normal. So I just noticed his prop was kind of high. Even if he's on AJ Brown a ton, it doesn't mean he's going to give up 5+ receptions. That's not the case at all. So it just seemed like his prop was a bit high, just considering how good he is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's probably just kind of looking at, okay, when the Eagles do pass, they're going to go to AJ Brown, and yeah, I guess because he had he probably, I mean, he's a good bet to catch 5 balls probably. All of them being on McDuffie, that's a different story.
Exactly. Yeah.
The tight ends. So we got so talked about Goddard. Kelsey, he's at 63.5. 61 to 63.5 in the market. Well, actually, some spots have him a bit more. Where do you kind of put him now that his streak is broken? You don't have to project him for 70 every game.
Yeah.
So, but where do you actually do you see him? He was kind of quiet in this one. What do you see him doing in against the Eagles? Given that they do have that great cornerback trio.
Yeah. I'm actually right in line with him this week to open the week. I'm just so pissed because last week I was showing something ridiculous, like 18 yards of value on his under. But of course, I have that one rule. I just don't fade Kelsey ever, really. So, especially in the playoffs. So, I didn't even touch it. He finished way under, but now I'm in line with the market. I think the time to fade him was last week. But, he had a 89% routes run rate last week. I bet we see 90% in this game. And I think more importantly, what the hell happened with Noah Gray? If I
I know.
like,
Oh, poor one out for my guy Stuckey. He was all over the Noah Gray.
oh,
He's probably so
well,
disappointed.
right. Well, what I do I have a error in my spreadsheet, or did he actually only run around on 9% of dropbacks last week?
Ooh, not wait. 9 sounds. Let me see.
Yeah, is
I
that
know
an
it was
error?
low. I got that sounded super low.
Because I'm
checking
looking
right
at
now.
different sources, and he ran
I have
around
20. I have 20%.
20%. Okay,
Yeah, I have
I'll
20%.
have to see what's going on there, but that's still
20% for
very
Gray
low.
and 3% for Hendershot.
How much for Hendershot? Oh
Three,
shit.
3%.
Oh okay. Yeah, because I have Gray with 3 routes run last week.
Whoa, nah. I can pull up the box score right now. No, no, he had. I think he had 11 pass snaps, 7 routes, 2 pass blocking, and 2 just like
I
penalty
think
or something.
it depends on which
Yeah, I'm using
source you
PFF,
use.
so for
Yeah,
full disclosure, and yeah, so
yeah,
that's what I usually use for my routes, and yeah, they got him at 7, which I mean that's a little surprising in this matchup because in that matchup against Buffalo, just because Buffalo had been struggling over the middle of the field. We saw that against Baltimore with Likely kind of popping off, Mark Andrews popping off. But it is a trend we've kind of seen as Hollywood Brown has gotten more involved in the offense that they haven't run quite as
yeah.
many 2 and 3 tight end sets. So, I mean, I think against the Eagles, you could see it return just because number one, it's the Chiefs. They always kind of switch it up a little bit game to
Mm-hmm.
game. But number two, the cornerbacks are really the strength of that Eagles defense. And you could have Kelsey and Gray going up against their old nemesis Oren Burks again in the
Yeah.
in the linebacking core for Philadelphia. So yeah, I mean that's interesting. Where do you have Gray projected then? I mean, I don't know if you want
Oh well, yeah.
if you're like
It's not.
updating his routes now, but
No. I'm not. No. That was on Next Gen Stats because
okay.
they display routes for guys that didn't get a
Mm-hmm.
target. I kind of like it. It's kind of
Yep,
nice.
I do
But they
like that too.
probably
But yeah, the
they handle it
consistency.
differently, especially with the tight end. They're a little bit more strict on what they call a route. Like if he's
Yep,
blocking and then he releases last second,
like a
where
block and chip and release.
yeah. So like that's at the end of the day, I'm not really factoring that in when it comes to my projection. More importantly, I was going to ask what your projected routes run rate. I still have it around 30. Do you have it around 30 or do you have it around 40? Like where do you have it bouncing back
35,
up to?
35.
Okay.
87.5 for Kelsey, 35 for Gray, 12.5 for Hendershot. And that's just essentially the averages of the 2 playoff games, except Kelsey is higher because he was like at 78% in the first playoff game.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and then you also have to kind of there's a little noise in like just how much they block, so you kind of got to look at the pass snaps. So yeah, so Gray 30% of the pass snaps last week, about 50% the week before. So you say about 40% on average, and then he blocks about 10% of the time. So yeah, got about 35. Feel decently about that. What about you?
Yeah, I have 30%. I think it has to do with exactly what you said. Ever since Hollywood Brown came back, Gray's usage has really taken a hit. Last week was pretty stark. So I'm weighing that a little bit more than you, but I could definitely see how you'd arrive at 35%. I think anywhere in that 35% range makes sense. But he's a player that I'm certainly looking into his markets.
He's got a receiving yardage prop market wide about 11 to 12. I have him at 14 mean. Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm in line with that. Probably maybe like a yard under. What about you?
I'm in that range. He's definitely a player I want to take a deeper dive at. Run some sims, things like that. But just he does have the potential for more downside than not most weeks. So yeah, I'll be looking into his props a little bit more. Chomping at the bit for a Justin Watson prop to pop up, if I'm being honest. But he's definitely somebody I'll be looking. I'll take a deeper dive in. And Kelsey, I want nothing to do with Kelsey. I am not fading him. I'm not backing him. Like, I'm just gonna be betting on other Chiefs.
I mean, we might maybe what they'll do in the playoffs is in the Super Bowl they'll just they'll give routes to Nico Remigio.
I was gonna say, like, if they have a trick play up their sleeve with him, they have to use it here, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's the only thing is he's been a little shaky with the ball security, but I mean, they're still using him, so.
Yeah, he probably played in Week 18, right?
Yeah, he played.
When they rested all the starters. How did he do? Let me see. I remember projecting 2 catches for 48 yards. Yeah, I remember projecting him for.
Yeah, I had a bet on him for first touchdown in that Texans game, so I was pretty tilted when he got the long return and then all the shenanigans ensued. Like, I was like, oh, we got it. No, we don't. No.
I think one market that might be interesting when it comes to like him or like other players is they have those props for how many Chiefs players will catch a pass. I think it's like it's like 8.5 or something. How many Eagles players will catch a pass, and it kind of like captures everything we've been talking about with these teams. Where I'd probably lean on the Chiefs over and the Eagles under because they have such a narrow target tree. But those would be props that I'd be on the lookout for our numerous prop shows coming up.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles just probably comes down to whether Jahan Dotson catches the pass or not.
Yeah, it's like Jahan, Calcaterra, and Johnny Wilson. Like those guys combined, right?
Yeah, I mean, if Jahan doesn't, then it's unlikely the others do. But yeah, it's right. Yeah. Any punt or any props you're looking out for before we get out of here?
Well, that's for tomorrow. They're starting to trickle out. We haven't seen the key, the longest, shortest punts, those type of props posted yet. But this time last year, I think they posted those either on the Tuesday or the Wednesday. So those have been trickling out. All I'm seeing is like total gross punt yards for each team. That's not exciting. That's still betting on, like over under 3.5 punts. But hopefully by tomorrow we see some like longest, shortest punt props. And if they have any value, I'll probably be giving one out tomorrow.
All right. Yeah, I'm coming off of my first punt prop win. I gave out as a long shot Eagles to have more punts than the Commanders because the Commanders just never punt, and that nice. It actually they had 2 and the Commanders had 1.
Nice.
So got to see if I can keep it going and match you. But looking forward to that, and we'll be back with the live prop show. So be sure to check that out. Until next time, be sure to check out FantasyLabs.com for all of our fantasy football content and projections. And don't forget, you can go to actionnetwork.com/SB right now for $40 discount on Action Pro. Sean is on X at @the_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Till next time, let's get this money.